Meme and beep. Say it with me. Meme and beep. Thank you. This is a totally true story of two people, Meme and Beep. Let me introduce you. Meme was my grandma, Catherine Besaga. And Beep was my grandpa, Joseph Besaga. Mr. Contest Master, fellow Toastmasters and friends, this is a story of two people in love. At least, I think they were in love. Mostly I remember them yelling at each other. But you know, they were married in 1927. They had 4 awesome kids together. And they lived together and married for 58 years until death did them part. 58 years of yelling, that's love. Meme was not the kind of person to hug us and cuddle us. I never remember her saying she loved us, though we know she did. And she was very crafty. You know, she made crafts, mostly out of crochet yarn and plastic mesh sheets. My grandmom could make absolutely anything, right? My parents. My grandmom could make absolutely anything out of crocheted plastic mesh. In fact, giving gifts of crocheted plastic mesh was Meme's way of saying, I love you. My grandpa was much quieter. He was the solid rock of the family. And he was also the only member of our family ever to be involved in organized crime. Now, during Prohibition, he was not a veterinarian, though I think he could handle it. But for a short time, he was a rum runner. After Prohibition, you know, I guess Anheuser-Busch was looking for that same skill set, because they hired him on as a beer truck driver. It's a chorus truck! Meme and Beep built that little house together on Bell Road in Mount Ephraim, New Jersey, shortly thereafter they were married, and they lived there until they passed away. You know, I never really checked. I bet if you look inside the walls of that house, you'd find they were made of crocheted plastic mesh. I remember a lot of food in that house, especially the meatball sandwiches. I tell you, every time we would go up there, we would stop at Del Bono's Bakery, and we'd buy these warm rolls, fresh out of the oven. I can smell them now, those dusted dollops of dough, that plethora of puffy provisions, that crusty chorus of carbohydratic comestibles. It's a real word. But the bread was even better knowing what came next, the meatballs. Every time we would go into Meme's kitchen, we would see her standing at the stove, stirring that pot of meatballs and tomato sauce, just for us. One time, we went on a vacation to Vermont, and we were driving back, and we hit a horrendous snowstorm. I remember sitting way in the back of our huge, classic 1969 Ford Country Squire station wagon. You know, powder blue with the fake wood sides. You know it. And I remember looking out the windshield and just seeing, as my dad drove down the highway slowly and carefully, seeing this swirling snow just hypnotically spinning over the highway. And I just thought to myself that we are going to die. But by some miracle, we didn't die. We pulled into Meme and Beep's house at 3 o'clock in the morning. We got out of the car, trudged through the snow, opened up the door to the kitchen, and what do you think we smelled? Meatballs. Yes, exactly. You know, I said that Meme never said she loved us, but if meatballs at 3 a.m. ain't love, I don't know what is. And it's not just the meatballs. Meme also made the world's best apple strudel for us. I remember one time I asked her for the recipe, but you know, I got a little mixed up and I was way too cool to write it down. I figured, I'll get it later. I always got time, right? Right? No. It's not just food. We also got great wisdom from them. Like Meme's favorite expression, she used to use it all the time. The older they get, the dumber they get. She said it a lot. And, you know, I look at myself now and I think, yeah, she had a point. Maybe if Meme was here with us today, she would look at me and make up a new expression. When they get really old, they join Toastmaster speech contests. And it's not just wisdom. We also learn German from them. They had this Volkswagen camper van that was built for the German market. And so for some reason, all the writing in it was in German. And there was one particular placard that my brother and I just loved. And this placard said, and I quote, "Gut Fahrt." Now, in German, "Gut Fahrt" means good trip, as in, have a good trip. But I tell you, to two teenage boys, this was absolutely the funniest thing we had ever seen. Yeah, you know, in that van, my brothers and I enjoyed many a gut fart. Beep always had heart problems. Eventually, it led to a brain problem. He died not knowing any of us. I remember my grandma standing over him on his hospital bed, yelling at him, "Come on, breathe!" Yelling with a tear in her eye. A few years later, Meme died as well. But you know, I don't want to remember him like that. I want to remember the Christmases at their house. I want to remember smelling the pot of meatballs and sitting in the parlor playing pinochle with my aunts and uncles and my parents. And watching TV. It was always on to either roller derby or professional wrestling. For you youngsters, that was the 1960s equivalent of WWE. My kids remember Meme and Beep best through our Christmas ornaments. Meme made about half the ornaments on our tree. You could truly say that she lives on today through crocheted plastic mesh. So that's the story of my Meme and Beep. What about your memes and beeps? Do you know their stories? Have you ever written them down? If not, I urge you, go talk to them, talk to your parents, talk to your family members, and then write down the stories and share them. You'll be glad you did. You won't always have time. Oh, and if you think of it, can you write down the recipe for the apple strudel? Thank you.